For decades, the global economy has revolved around one relationship, the partnership between China and the United States. America was the buyer. China was the factory. Together, they built the backbone of globalization. But what happens when the world's two biggest powers start drifting apart? Well, that's exactly what's happening right now, and China isn't waiting around. It's quietly building a system that can survive and even thrive without America. Stay till the end, because we'll uncover China's secret plans step by step, from trade and technology to money and military, and see how it's preparing for a world where America no longer calls the shots. Chapter 1. The Great Decoupling. It all began with the US-China trade war in 2018. Tariffs, bans, and sanctions suddenly exposed how dependent both economies were on each other. For China, it was a wake-up call, one that changed everything. So, Beijing launched what it calls the dual circulation strategy. Here's the core idea. China wants to depend less on exports and more on its domestic economy. In simple terms, we'll still trade with the world, but if the world shuts the door, we'll be fine on our own. And it's already happening. Chinese companies are now targeting their 1.4 billion citizens as the primary consumers, not just foreigners. By building a self-sustaining internal market, China aims to protect itself from any US economic weapon. In 2024 alone, over 70% of China's GDP growth came from domestic consumption, a record shift from its old export-heavy model. Chapter 2. The Tech Independence Mission. If trade was the first battlefield, technology became the second. When the US restricted Huawei, banned advanced chips, and cut access to key semiconductors, China realized something terrifying. Its entire tech industry was vulnerable to American pressure. The response? A full-scale tech independence campaign. China is pouring hundreds of billions into chip manufacturing, AI research, and quantum computing. Companies like SMIC are developing homegrown chips, while Huawei stunned the world in 2024 by launching a 5G smartphone powered by a 100% Chinese-made chip, despite US sanctions. Beijing's semiconductor fund, nicknamed the Big Fund 3.0, is worth $47 billion, all dedicated to ending China's reliance on foreign tech. Chapter 3. Energy and Resource Security. China knows technology means nothing without resources to power it. That's why it's building what analysts call the Great Energy Wall. Through massive investments in Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America, China is locking down access to oil, lithium, and rare earth metals, the lifeblood of modern industry. At the same time, it's leading the world in solar and battery production, ensuring that even if global supply lines collapse, its factories keep running. China now controls over 70% of the world's lithium refining and 80% of solar panel manufacturing. That's not just dominance, that's insurance for survival. Chapter 4. The Financial Firewall. But there's another weak spot. Money. Global trade runs on the US dollar, and that gives Washington enormous leverage. So China is quietly building a financial escape route, a system that can operate even if it's cut off from the dollar. Enter the digital yuan, China's central bank-issued digital currency. It allows cross-border transactions without touching the US banking system or SWIFT network. Beijing is testing it with dozens of countries through the Belt and Road Initiative, aiming to replace the dollar in key trade routes across Asia and Africa. As of 2025, more than 140 countries are exploring partnerships that use the digital yuan for energy and infrastructure payments. Chapter 5. Military and Strategic Autonomy. Economic power means little without protection. That's why China has been modernizing its People's Liberation Army faster than any country in history. From hypersonic missiles to AI-driven naval fleets, Beijing's message is clear. We won't be bullied into submission. In the South China Sea, new artificial islands have become full-scale military bases. And through defense partnerships with Russia, Iran, and Pakistan, China is building a security network that rivals the American alliance system. In 2024, China's defense budget hit $230 billion, second only to the US, but growing nearly twice as fast. Chapter 6. The Global Power Shift. All these moves, economic, technological, financial, and military, are part of one grand vision, a world no longer centered on America. Through the BRICS Plus alliance, China is promoting a new order based on multipolar power, where countries trade in local currencies, share technology, and bypass Western systems entirely. For decades, globalization meant US dominance. Now, China wants to rewrite that story, and this time it wants to be the author. In 2025, BRICS nations officially surpassed the G7 in global GDP share, purchasing power parity. That's a historic shift, the first time developing nations collectively outweighed the West. Can China really go solo? So, can China truly survive without America? The honest answer, yes and no. Yes, because it's building alternatives across every critical system. Energy, technology, finance, and defense. But also no, because the global economy is deeply interconnected. Even China's massive market still depends on exports, and innovation thrives through collaboration, not isolation. Still, one thing is certain. If the world ever splits into two competing systems, one led by Washington, the other by Beijing, China will be ready. The secret plan isn't about cutting ties overnight. It's about ensuring that when the world divides, China doesn't collapse. It adapts. So, the real question isn't whether China can survive without America. It's whether America can survive without China. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to hit like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more deep dives into the real forces shaping our future.